Hi, everyone, and welcome to the KU ADRC webinar. Another Thursday has come, and we are excited to have our presenter, who I'm going to tell you some lovely things about in just a moment. Before that, I'll remind everyone to make sure you're on mute. Looks like everyone is, and that we are recording. So this will be available on our website for viewing after today. We have the closed captioning function available if you need that. Just click on the button at the bottom of your screen and the captions will appear. As far as announcements, I have, of course, ongoing announcement that we have Y showings happening, including one that will be on Monday, the 18th of September in Manhattan, Kansas at the Meadowlark Event Center. And that's been running in the My Alliance newsletter every week. So you should have the information about how to get there as you choose. Other than that, I think that's all the announcements, which is great because the best part is coming. And that is our guest speaker for today, who is Alexis Del Cid. And I'm going to tell you some things about her. Her face might look familiar to a lot of you. Alexis is currently the host and reporter for the University of Kansas Health System Medical News Network, including the weekly show All Things Heart. Previously, Alexis was the radio and TV news anchor and reporter, and she has made her way around the country, including stops in Chicago, Louisiana, Champaign, Illinois, Albuquerque, New Mexico, Portland, Oregon, Kansas City, San Antonio, Texas, and finally back to Kansas City, which she says she fell in love with. And I think many of us can understand loving Kansas City. And we are so happy that Alexis has come back to be with us in Kansas City. Among her many well-deserved accolades includes winning an Emmy for the best morning newscast. So we can all say we are 1 degree from an Emmy winner. It's pretty exciting. She's also gotten a Chicago Air Award. And I think based on reading the information that Alexis shared with me about her favorite prize might be that she has the world's best dad for her. And Alexis's dad is the reason that she's a journalist, she says. Her dad was also a journalist for 50 years at WLS Radio in Chicago. And her grandfather was a reporter for the Chicago Sun. And this is maybe my favorite part. So many wonderful things about Alexis, but Alexis's dad taught her how to water ski, not only water skiing with 1 foot while juggling 3 balls. I mean, I wouldn't even believe it, except for she sent a picture. And if you've been on the webinar for a few minutes, you saw the picture scrolling, even a still picture. It looks amazing. I can just imagine, Alexis, what it looks like while you're actually doing. I mean, you even decide you can do that. I don't know. Anyway, so Alexis has a really fantastic father, and he has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. And so Alexis is ready to raise awareness and inspire people to reach out. And she says connecting is the key to surviving and one day finding a cure, which of course is the goal for all of us, I think. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Alexis. Alexis, you'll get us started by telling us about your life story, and we will keep talking. And I'll encourage everyone to use the chat if you have comments or questions. And I think we're in for a real treat. So welcome, Alexis.
Kelly, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to do this. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk and to connect. I know we talked about a week ago, what should we call it? And I said, why don't we talk about connecting? Because I think one of the things, I'll just jump right in. I think one of the most insidious things about Alzheimer's is that it has a tendency to isolate every single member of the family, from the person who's diagnosed with it, to the spouse, to the child, to the brother, sister, friend. Everybody's grieving in their own way. And in an effort to protect the person that's been diagnosed with it, we tend to want to, at least I know I have, and I have to fight that urge, keep them out of the public, keep people from seeing them that way. Right? You find that what if, when my mom first joined a support group, when my dad was first diagnosed, they joined support groups together and talked about how the tendency when you walk, if they're in a phase where they might say something that other people don't quite understand or might come across as odd or out of context, you don't want to make other people uncomfortable, or you don't want to make your friends uncomfortable. You don't want someone to come over and not know what to say. So, like, in an effort to protect everyone around us, we're just circling the wagons and getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and our little circle gets smaller and smaller. And one of the things that my mom and dad did that was so beautiful is right when my dad was diagnosed, and they learned this through their Alzheimer's support group. Um, they gave, we decided as a family we were going to talk about it. We weren't going to hide it from anyone. Wasn't going to be a secret. Wasn't going to be a situation where someone passes and then you find out after the fact, oh, they had this disease. That's why you didn't see them for years and years. My mom and dad said, let's just talk about it. Let's just keep it out there and stay connected. And that's really been helpful on so many levels. And for me, it's really helped me write about it. I started a blog and I post things on Facebook, and I'm always surprised at the outpouring of people who know exactly what it's like and thought they were the only ones, or they just never had it put into words on a public forum. Any of these moments and these very specific things that happen, because we all are experiencing our own unique grief. At the same time, there are so many similar threads. So that's why I like the opportunity to talk about it. And I'm so grateful that my mom and my dad gave the family permission to be open about it. And one of the things I think, and then I'm happy to just openly talk. If you're on this call, it's either because you've been diagnosed, you love someone who was diagnosed, or you care about research and just to stop this from happening to people someday. I just pray someday some generation isn't going to have to deal with this. It's not my generation. I don't know if it's my son's generation, but I just pray that we can get enough research to have a cure or a total prevention for this disease. And one of the most helpful things, I think, and if you hear barking in the background, it's my giant boxer dog who gets very jealous when I am doing anything except petting her. One of the things I thought that was so helpful was we were also told, you pick up these tidbits along the way. And someone said, you need to stop calling it my dad. I need to stop saying my dad's Alzheimer's. Or you don't say, Dad, your Alzheimer's, because he doesn't own it. It's not his. He is not the disease. He doesn't own the disease. When someone happens to be diagnosed with Alzheimer's, they're the vehicle that is carrying this disease for the whole family, and the whole family has it. Every single person in the family, every single loved one is experiencing it in different ways. They might not be the vehicle, but the whole family has it. And if you deal with it as a family and as a team, it helps. Doesn't make it any less heartbreaking, but it can't hurt it to help. And it takes away the power of saying, oh, my dad owns this disease. It's my dad's. So I found that really helpful. We call it the Alzheimer's, or my dad was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So he was diagnosed in 2019, the day after his sister, my aunt, died from Alzheimer's. My grandma had it. My great grandpa had it, my grandma's dad. So it definitely runs in our family, or it has run in our family. So that's my story. And I'm just really passionate about connecting with people and making it okay to talk about it. Because if you don't talk about it, you're just isolating yourself. And something I found that's really beautiful is the more I talk about it, I've had so many friends I haven't seen in years that have come to visit me from out of state because they just want to see my dad and they want to connect with him. And if I hadn't have been open and talked about it, my dad wouldn't be getting all these really wonderful visitors or childhood friends of mine that remember my dad because he was like their dad too. And that, I think, has been pretty beautiful to see how many people still want to connect. They might not know what to say or what to do, but they want to be there, and you have to let people be there. But the only way you can let people be there is if you let them know what's happening. And I think that's important.
Absolutely. Alexis, you talk so beautifully about being open and sharing your story. And for anybody who has not seen your blog or your Facebook page, you have a real gift for telling stories that touch our hearts and also make us laugh. And I feel like I've met your dad,
Yeah, it makes
reading
me
all about
happy.
him. How did you and he get to a place where you felt like you could laugh at some of his foibles and some of your adventures? How did you get from a place of, my goodness, his sister passing away with Alzheimer's, him getting the
Yeah.
diagnosis, to what I feel like could be a comedy road show with you two telling stories and touching heart?
I think part of it is just the beauty of my dad is that nothing was ever off limits when we were growing up. He made a living on the radio, saying he can say, have the most grim situation and somehow make a joke out of it, even at his own expense. And he always told me it's never too soon and nothing's off limits.
Huh.
And I feel like everybody's different. This might not work for everyone, but I'm taking the power away from the Alzheimer's by continuing to find bits of humor in this. I mean, nothing's funny about my dad having Alzheimer's, but I'm not going to stop sharing funny moments that might have happened because of it. And it's because my dad was such a funny, sweet guy. For me, it's like honoring him because he wouldn't want anyone to put on kid gloves and baby him. The best way I can honor my dad is to keep talking about it and treat him like the human being that he is. Because it's just this disease that's attacking his brain. But I like to picture the parts of him that have already left kind of watching down and watching us navigate this as a family. Um,
Wonderful.
and he'd be so upset if we were not doing that.
Mhm.
He had such a bright light about him, and he still does. So I'm not about to let him secretly wither away and not say funny things about it. Because he's the reason. I mean, he was always known for his sharp wit and his comedic timing, and he always encouraged me to write and not be afraid to put into words things that sound ugly and might be scary to say out loud. And then I find when I say them out loud, they lose their power.
Yeah. So Alexis, I mentioned, and those who joined the Zoom meeting early enough to see the photos, you're a great talent for water skiing on one leg and juggling. And
My
I,
dad taught me how to do that.
yes,
Yeah.
and I can't help but think that that is the perfect metaphor or a description for how it feels to be a caregiver,
Yeah.
uh, many times. And not only to be a caregiver, but to be working a full-time job, raising a family, carving out some time for yourself. How do you manage it all? And what advice would you give to other caregivers?
Well, my mom was really the one doing the in the trenches for a while, for the past 5 years. I'm able to have a job, come home, and then, I was able to care for my dad a couple days a week, visit him, take him out. But my mom was the one who was lifting him towards the end and changing him and doing those things. I can tell you, so I feel guilty calling myself the caregiver because my mom was really getting the brunt of it. So I don't know if Denise jumped on yet, but she is the caregiver. We always would tell my mom, you've got to nap. Um, you have to rest. Sometimes she would just call me and say, I am getting so frustrated with daddy today. One day she snapped at him and she felt so guilty. She called me crying but you're a human being. And if things keep happening, we all snap at people we love. And I said, bring them over. You nap. You just need to nap. You just need to have a day where you're resting. I mean, nothing would rest her mind because she was constantly worrying. But what we try to do is divide things up. Or my mom was so good about reaching out. There is this amazing couple that my parents knew at Oasis, this group that they belong to. And my mom was talking to this couple, Gary, and the other woman's name is Denise as well. And they said, we love Jim. We'd like to take him out to lunch once a week and a movie. And my mom felt guilty accepting that. And they said, no, no, Denise, we want to be with Jim, but also let this be our gift to you. And so I think it's accepting that help, accepting it when people are offering it, and it's okay if you want a break, and it's okay to trust someone else, even if it's just for an hour. But then another thing is, you really just do fall to pieces. I mean, my boss here at the health system is awesome. Like, there have been a couple of days where I've gone into her office and just said, Jill, I'm hanging by a thread. I just said it out loud. I mean, I don't know if you ever have those days where you feel like you're white knuckling it and you're like, your emotions are so close to the surface of your skin. Someone could just poke you and you'd start crying. It's just, you're angry and you're sad and you're frazzled. And I couldn't concentrate. And I just went into her office and I'm hanging by a thread. I, I don't know how I'm going to get through this day. And she said, go home, work from home today. I know you're going to get your work done, go home. And that's just a credit to finding a beautiful person that's my boss that could understood and let me go home and just deal with it. But I don't know that I would have gotten that help had I not said it out loud. I made that choice to be open. So when people say, what's your family like? Well, my dad has Alzheimer's. It's been a real kick in the face. You just say it. Or people say, how are you doing? I mean, it's okay to say, not so good today, but thanks for asking. It's exhausting when people keep asking you how you're doing, and they mean well, but how many different synonyms are there for terrible? Like, if you're feeling terrible, it's okay to say I'm pretty terrible today. But it's not about, we don't have to make the people around us feel comfortable. They're asking, and if they're asking, then they might get an honest answer once in a while. You don't you want to be socially appropriate. If you're just passing in the hallway, you can't unload everything. But if someone's asking and then you're feeling terrible and you say it, they may cut you a break or give you some grace or understand, well, she's going through something. And so that's really, I would really encourage anyone on this call, if you're going through something like this, it's okay to answer that way. It's okay. You don't have to be sorry for not being chipper about something that's really bad.
How lovely. We are so lucky, Alexis, that you decided to come back to Kansas City. I remember when you left, and thinking, whenever you see someone that you feel familiar with, I've watched you on TV all these years, and then you're leaving. How could you leave? And then when I
It's
heard that
nice.
you were coming back, I felt like, oh, this is wonderful. She's coming back. She's realized how great it is to be
Yeah.
back in Kansas City. And
Yeah.
I know, from the bio that you shared, that a lot of your decision to come back was because of your father's diagnosis. And so
Mhm.
while we would not have wished for that to be the reason for you to return to Kansas City, I'm so glad that Kansas City gets to have you back, and especially glad that the University of Kansas Health System has been able to snag you. Can you tell us a bit about what you're doing with the Medical News Network?
Sure. Yes. And my dad's, it's awful, and it puts things in perspective pretty quickly. When you get a diagnosis like that, you think, what am I doing? And so I don't ever feel like, oh, I gave up something and came back, because I mean, I remember thinking life is too short. My dad has Alzheimer's. My son is entering high school. What's happening? Am I going to do what I'm doing right now till I die? Or is there other things I want to do in life? Because it puts things in perspective real quick that anything can happen. And I just realized I'm ready to do something different. And my husband was ready and we were ready. And again, that's like my dad keep continuing to give these gifts. Um, so that's the way I like to think of it. And then I called, you start networking and sending out emails and saying, okay, we want to do something new. What are we going to do? And I found out that Jill has the Medical News Network, which Jill Tadwick is my boss at the health system, and she's a former news director from traditional TV stations. And so she's basically started up a news channel in the University of Kansas Health System. And so my part in that is, we put together newscasts, but the newscasts are all medical and they're on specific issues. And we have patients and the doctors that treat them and the nurses that treat them and different issues and anything medical related, any health issue, anything health related. And we do a 30-minute show on that topic every single morning. So the shows are 5 days a week. And the particular show that I host regularly is Thursdays. It's called All Things Heart, and it's a heart show. And we do any possible medical issue, problem, disease, and how it relates to the heart. From today, we did sleep and how sleep impacts the heart and sleep disorders. But the whole show revolved around a guy named Joe who had a sleep disorder and it was affecting his heart. I've done stories on this really wonderful patient named Pat who went to the eye doctor because Pat thought that he had floaters in his eye. And the eye doctor looked at him and said, "You're seconds away from having a stroke. You need to go to the ER." So we talked about how your eye health can be connected to your heart. So it's pretty cool to see how the heart is connected to every facet of your whole being. So that's what I do now for a living. And it's kind of fun because I actually found a way to do news and not be in news like a newsroom in a TV station. I'm not waking up at 1:45 in the morning anymore. Which is what I did for years and years. I was in news for almost 25 years. And for the last 10, 13 years of it, I was waking up at 1:45 in the morning. That's exhausting. And that kind of was a wake up call. When my dad was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, I started researching and reading about how sleep is so important to brain health. And I just started thinking, this is not worth it. It's just not worth it. I want to do something else. But the health system is great. I mean, I'm able to do any kinds of stories that, as long as they're related to some sort of patient or health issue or doctor or something that could be treated and could be an issue. So that's really
Yeah,
fun.
it is. And I watched you earlier this summer with my colleague, Michelle Needens, who's the
Michelle
director of
is
our, yes,
wonderful. Oh my
Cognitive
gosh.
Care Network. And
Uh-huh.
so I wonder, Alexis, if you would talk for a moment about how that connection with Michelle and the Cognitive Care Network was helpful.
Yes. So helpful. So one of the shows I also will fill in for the morning medical update, and we did an episode on Alzheimer's and talked about the support that's available. And Michelle is basically, my dad saw Dr. Burns and still we'll see Dr. Burns, although my dad is so advanced um, that the visits with Dr. Burns have dropped off. My mom still talks to Michelle, and Michelle works as a social worker. She helps find, and if I'm getting her official title wrong, you'll have to correct me, but Michelle has basically been this angel. I don't know how she's able to help everybody. There's so many patients there, but she's in charge of finding the patients, helping them navigate where to get support, where are the support groups. She helped my mom navigate when it was finally time to make the decision to place my dad in memory care. It was Michelle who talked my mom through it. My mom just had an hour-long conversation with Michelle yesterday about, I mean, this has been, Michelle called to check in with her. They had an appointment and helped my mom look at the day as colors of the rainbow. Like, did okay, you got your red stripe. That was exercise. Okay, did you get your peaceful time in? Okay, that's yellow. Michelle has these beautiful metaphors, and I don't know how she has the energy or the time, but she devotes this time so individually to each loved one and family who's going through this. And I really don't know how we would have done it without Michelle. And the fact that we have someone like that working here in our city is really incredible to me. I could cry. She's just such a gift.
Yes, we certainly agree, Alexis. I've known and worked with Michelle for more than 20 years and
Oh my gosh.
absolutely consider her a real gift to the Alzheimer's community, as we do
Hmm.
you for being with us today. We've got about 6 more minutes, and so
Yeah.
I could just, sit here and ask you all kinds of wonderful questions because I'm so grateful for your story. But I suppose I should let other people ask some questions also. So anybody, if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask Alexis a question, I invite you to do that. Or if you'd like to use the chat, you're welcome to do that. I'm putting in
Patty
the
has
chat.
a question. Patty's
Yes,
raising
Patty,
her
go
hand.
ahead. Go for it, Patty.
This has been wonderful. I'm so glad I was able to tune in today.
Oh,
I did hear you say, and I was listening for it specifically, that your dad is in memory care.
he is.
How do you know when it's time to do that? Because I think I've been 10 years on this journey with my husband. He'll
Oh
be
my gosh.
92 in November, and he's asleep right now, and he's been asleep since last night. I
Oh,
can't hardly, he just doesn't want to wake up and move and get dressed. And he's starting to not know the children.
right.
So he still knows me, but how do you know when it's time?
It's so hard. I wish I could give you a hug. It is, you never feel great about it. How we knew was my mom was waking up every night and changing him. And because of the Alzheimer's, it attacks the parts of your body, as you know, that can control continence. And I was afraid she was going to fall. Like hearing you say that, like I'm wondering, like, how are you doing it? Are you lifting? Are there stairs in your house? It became a risk. And I thought it was, and then we went along like that for like a year, but you've been doing it 10 years. It came down to um, my mom was always sore. She was tired. Her arthritis, her hands were killing her. She had brain fog. Um, and and my mom was talking to Michelle, and Michelle said something, everyone's different, but by this time, a majority of people would have made the decision to place someone in memory care. And it's not putting them away. It's truly placing your loved ones someplace safe, because I can promise you this, I don't know your husband, but I can tell how much you love him from what you're saying and how you're saying it. And no one would be on this call if you weren't deeply in love or have a love for someone who has it. They would never want you to, the true and complete loved one watching this would never want you to be living like this. It is so hard though, and there's no easy way to do it. We visited places. I helped my mom write a letter to all of our family members, um, explaining the decision, because for me and my mom, there was a level of what will people think? And guess what? Everyone was thinking, oh my gosh, how much longer can she do this? No one was thinking, what?
Yeah.
Why? And my dad would have been beside himself. My true and complete dad would have never wanted this. And he would be so upset. And it's one of those decisions you just you're like waiting and like rowing, and then you're like keeping your head, and then you come to the realization that physically it they wouldn't want you to get sick and something happened to you or you to fall.
Yeah.
And I wrote about it. If you'd like to read about it, I've written about it more, and I'm happy to share my blog. Oh, someone shared my Facebook post. Oh, my WordPress. That's my blog, and we write about it in there. So if you can see in the chats, alexisdelcid.wordpress. I know that wasn't a very cut and dry answer I just gave you.
Dr. Burns has been wonderful. Michelle, you're
Yes.
right on track with her. She is an angel for sure. And I've had lots of conversations with her.
Yes. And that you've been doing this for 10 years. I don't even know how you're doing it.
Well, it's just been the last year that has
Yeah.
really, things have really, somebody
Yes.
said his brain is shrinking. Well, I don't
Yes.
know what that means exactly, but it's
It's horrific.
awful. It's awful.
It's horrifying. And
Yeah.
you're seeing this person and you're thinking, like, sometimes I wonder, I feel like if my dad was an actor, this would be in a movie or something. Like, I can't believe it's him. And then I try to envision someone on Facebook, and it was a stranger, said, like, I wrote about, where are they going? Like, I believe in heaven. And so it's been really hard for me to figure out how it works then if someone's leaving in pieces. Like if someone dies suddenly, I can picture them in heaven. They weren't here, now they're there. What happens when their mind goes first? Where is that? But parts of him are still here. So is part of him in heaven? Is part of him is here? I don't know. And then someone on Facebook said that she thinks that all of our loved ones are up there with a little basket collecting the pieces as my dad arrives. His mom is collecting his sister, and they're waiting for the rest of him. And I think that's the most beautiful portrayal I could hear. That's something that actually makes sense to me. So I like to think that maybe your husband, parts of him are already up there watching you and cheering you on and trying to be like, oh, come on, like you can do this. You're doing such a good job. And I don't know why this kind of disease exists where we have to have such a prolonged, excruciating experience that is so unique. Only people who've gone through it or are going through it can understand. But yeah, I wish I could give you a solid answer on exactly when to know. I just know Michelle. When Michelle said it, we knew. It gave my mom permission. And then I told my mom, Mom, you have permission. Daddy would never want this. And then writing the letter, I can even share, I've thought about sharing the letter I wrote to family members about it, explaining the decision. I just kind of put it all out there, but they all responded with, oh my gosh, thank God. We were wondering how much longer you were going to do this. No one said, already? No one says that. But you're not putting them away somewhere. You're placing them somewhere safe that can protect them. The beauty of memory care is there's a nurse that visits regularly. My mom's not doing the lifting. There's a dentist that comes in. It's the safest possible place my dad could be.
Wonderful. Alexis, we have Renee has raised her hand, and so if you're willing to answer another
Absolutely.
question.
I can stay as long as you guys want. I'm here. Like, I know you probably allotted a certain amount of time, but I'm happy to stay as long as you want.
Okay. Well, Renee, if you want to go forward.
So my question is really about when you placed your dad in memory care, how did your relationship with him change at that point, or your role in this whole team that was helping to care for him before? How has that adjusted, and what does that look like now for you?
So now what it looks like is every day we visit him. My mom's there every day. Nothing has changed except for it's like nothing and everything. We don't change his diapers. We're not lifting him in the shower. My mom's not changing his diapers. And I know it sounds so weird to talk about my dad's diapers. Like, what? But if I don't say it out loud, no one's going to say it out loud. It's part of Alzheimer's. It's not your fault. No grown-up would want to wear diapers, but they just can't. It's the Alzheimer's, not his, so it's changed in that we're not doing the nitty-gritty anymore, which my dad would be horrified if we would have told him 10 years ago that my mom and I would be changing him and doing things in the bathroom for him. He wouldn't have wanted that. He'd be like, get me a nurse. So now basically there are trained people that do that and shower. That's changed. When I go there, we get to sit and talk. And if he has an accident, someone takes him away and changes him and he comes back clean. He eats with a group. He doesn't necessarily eat dinner with us, but it wasn't really eating with us anymore because he was sleeping sometimes, shuffling his food around. So really the one thing that changes is that's where he lives now. But we can go whenever we want.
Wonderful.
And then that's an adjustment. It was a big adjustment for my mom to not wake up and have him right next to her. And that she's still adjusting to that. She's still, this is very recent. This was in June.
Yeah.
So it's still very weird, but I know it's for the better. And within 2 weeks, her arthritis started to get less. Her hands were less swollen. When I saw her just the other day, she came to my house and I said, Mom, your skin looks really good. And she's like, well, it's, someone else said that to me. And I think it's just because she's sleeping through the night. She's super sad and she's grieving, but she's physically sleeping and she's not lifting a man around the house and like chasing him and worrying all the time.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Any other Thank you, Renee, for that was a lovely question. Any other questions or thoughts before we wrap up? Alexis, I know you offered to stay all day, and I think we could all just listen to your wisdom.
If anyone has any questions, no pressure, but if anyone had a question or wanted to keep talking, I'm here.
I have. Well, as sad as it is, I think it's fortunate for people who can afford to your loved one to this facility. What would happen to people who cannot afford those various type of facility?
That's a really good
What kind
question.
of choice do they have?
That's a very good question. And there's something really wrong with our whole system here that it's so expensive. I mean, I shudder to think of what would have happened to my mom if she didn't have a place. We did have a man. There are people that come in called visiting angels. And before we placed my dad in memory care, this was something that I had left out. My mom found a really nice man named William who would come 3 days a week and just be in the house. And we told my dad it was just going to be a buddy, a new friend named William. And William would take my dad places or take him for walks or watch TV with him. And my mom would be able to go to the grocery store or to take a shower or you just take a nap. But I don't know that would be a good question for Kelly. Like, what do people do?
You're right for the person who asked the question, and Alexis, that being able to wave your magic wand and say, okay, now we're ready for the next level of supportive care is not always a financially viable option for people. Some suggestions I can think of top of mind is that depending on where you live, your local area agency on aging, every community has one, every county has one, likely has some support for its seniors, and particularly those who have a diagnosis of dementia, to receive some support like in-home care, home delivered meals, transportation, respite. So that's one option. And anybody, including the person who asked the question, if you need help figuring out where your area agency on aging is, I'm happy to do that. You can email the My Alliance address and let me know your zip code, and I can help with that. The other option is, a couple of other options are long-term care insurance, which if people were prepared enough to get that earlier on, can be a real help as the disease progresses. And then the third of many, many options is Medicaid benefits. Those are what lots and lots and lots of people use to manage diagnoses of dementia, including having some support depending on the kind of what the situation is for your loved one, where you live, what kind of income you have, or perhaps more accurately don't have. Medicaid may be able to provide some in-home benefits instead of long-term care. And we do know that in-home care that Medicaid can pay for is less costly. It's all costly, but it's less costly for the state, which Medicaid is a state agency. It's less costly for Medicaid to pay for in-home care than it is for Medicaid to pay for long-term care. So Medicaid could be an option. It could be an option for your loved one to stay at home, as well as an option for your loved one to move to a long-term care facility, like a skilled nursing facility. So those are a few things that you can do. And like I said, I invite anybody who wants to maybe get some more specific information, especially for your location, feel free to send an email to the My Alliance address that comes to me, and I can reply and give you some guidance. So thank you for that very timely and important question. And as I think about speakers for future webinars, I'm wondering if somebody who knows a lot about Medicaid might not be a bad idea. So thank you for the inspiration.
Another thing that was very helpful, my mom spoke with it was someone who'd already traveled a little further down that road that she met in her support group, met with an attorney that specializes in elder law.
Yes.
And that was incredibly helpful with her to get her finances in order right when he was diagnosed. It's, that just was something that I would I tell all my friends because unfortunately, I feel like everywhere I turn, I have another friend whose parent was just diagnosed with Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
Talked to an attorney that specializes in elder law. That was so helpful with getting finances in order.
Yes, another great idea. And I'm aware of some resources that I'd be happy to share with
Yeah.
anybody who needs that as well. So Alexis, thank you. You're just sparking all kinds of great ideas today, as I am completely unsurprised that you would do. So I'm gonna wrap us up for now only. And Alexis, I'll say in front of everybody that we would love to have you join us another time.
Anytime.
If you would be willing to
Absolutely.
share more information. And I hope everybody got the link for your Facebook page and your blog in the chat. It's also on our website on kualzheimer.org under the weekly webinar section. So you can go there and you can read more about Alexis and her water skiing talents. And you can get the link to her Facebook page and her blog. We will post this recording to watch again. And Renee, I saw your question in the chat about whether we can have Michelle the Angel, Michelle Needens come on the webinar.
So great.
Yes, I'm sure I can twist her arm to do that. In fact, she had the nerve to email me while we are doing this webinar, and she very well knows I am doing this. So when I reply to her email, I'll tell her ears should be burning.
I mean, seriously, she is amazing. I don't even, so grateful there's just a human that exists like Michelle.
Absolutely. So yes, I will be in touch with her about that. And we've got a great slate of upcoming speakers next week. Our LEAP colleague, Rachel Sandoval, will be back with us, and she will be specifically talking about nutrition and the Mediterranean diet. And we know how interested you all are in what you can eat. So Rachel will join us next week, and we'll be also talking next week about Launch KU, and I'll leave you in a little suspense about what that means. But we'll be talking about that next Thursday, the 21st, which is World Alzheimer's Day. I mean, for all of us, every day is Alzheimer's Day, right? But World Alzheimer's Day is next Thursday. And so we will definitely be taking notice of that special day. I see some comments in the chat. Thank you, everybody. Alexis, I hope you see those.
I think I accidentally responded to Martha. I got a message from Jan saying thank you. And I said, thank you, Jan. And it says it went directly to Martha. I get confused with this stuff, but thank you.
It's a lie. But yes, Martha and Amy are both correct that hospice can be invaluable resources for particularly folks in late stages of Alzheimer's disease. Hospice is one of those rare Medicare resources that is paid at 100%. So if you can access it, you should, because you deserve it, and it can be so literally life-changing even at end of life. So this is one of the benefits, one of the many benefits of the webinars, that we can share all these great ideas and these resources, and we can all feel like somebody else understands. So with that, I keep saying I'm going to wrap us up, and we all keep thinking of great things to say, which is so lovely. But I think we'll stop there for now. Again, thank you to Alexis.
Can I say one more thing?
I'm
so sorry. I know. If you're, Facebook's great. I always respond to Facebook if you have a question. If you're just looking for like a deep dive into essays about the Alzheimer's part, because Facebook will have a mix of things. The blog, which there's a link in there at WordPress, that's going to be straight Alzheimer's through the decision to place them on memory care and everything. Just if you don't want to weed through Facebook, if you want to connect on Facebook, I love it. I love Facebook, but if you just want to read, and just know that you'll find more direct stuff about the Alzheimer's in the blog.